afternoon, I'm Speaker of the House Mark Eves of North Berwick. 5 months ago, Governor LePage sent us a budget that, if passed, would deal a huge blow to our economy and our middle class. In order to pay for a tax break that largely benefits the wealthy, his budget increases property taxes on the middle class and working people, on seniors and small businesses, and on homeowners and renters. The Maine Municipal Association says that the LePage budget is a $424 million shift to municipalities and property taxpayers, nearly the same price tag of the tax breaks for the wealthy. That's why more than 60 towns and school districts have signed resolutions against the LePage budget. Governor LePage has passed the buck to our cities and towns and to our working families. The question before us is not whether we raise taxes or not, but instead, will we raise taxes on working and middle class people, on our seniors and small businesses, or can we simply agree that right now, Maine cannot afford a tax break that was not paid for? We cannot ask the middle class families or seniors who live on fixed incomes and small business owners to pay property tax increases to give a tax break to the wealthy. It's not fair and it's not right. When the property tax bill comes due, we will all pay the price. We need a responsible solution. We need a balanced approach. Democrats have always said we need a fair and responsible budget that won't hurt our economy. One that funds our schools, keeps our promises to our cities and towns, and protects our elderly, people with disabilities, and the poor. In this budget, Democrats have already agreed to make painful cuts to programs that help the homeless and treat the mentally ill. But we won't be able to balance this budget on painful cuts alone. We must have a willing partner who's willing to consider fair tax solutions. We'd like to thank the Taxation Committee leads and chairs, Representative Adam Good of Bangor and Senator Ann Haskell of Portland, for the alternatives they put forward after months of public hearings. It's clear to us that putting these tax breaks for the wealthy on hold is a responsible option. Our economy simply isn't growing at the pace to be able to afford a tax break that primarily benefit the wealthy. We simply cannot afford to do this, and now is not the time. I'll give you a quick example. It's like buying a Porsche without being able to pay for it. The deal was good, no monthly payments, no down payment, 0% interest. We've gone on an irresponsible joyride that we cannot afford. And now, the bill is due. We can't afford the sports car. We shouldn't purchase something we cannot afford to pay for. We simply cannot afford to do this. And again, now is not the time. And with that, I hand it over to President Alfond.
Thank you. Thank you, Speaker Eves. Good afternoon. I am Senator Justin Alfond, President of the Maine Senate. In the legislature, we deal with the facts. The governor's budget is not balanced, and it's disingenuous for the governor to say that it is. It's simply not. The governor's budget raises property taxes for every Maine family. It passes the buck, and it unnecessarily burdens Maine communities. His budget shirks the state's responsibility to our towns and communities, our schools, and our small businesses and property owners. And it breaks the state's promise to Maine people. To be clear, forcing a property tax increase on Maine families and businesses is not a balanced budget. The people of Maine expect leadership, and they expect us to work together. Today, we stand here because we've heard loud and clear from our small towns and our cities, this budget does not work. It cannot work. The governor's budget brazenly raises property taxes on every Maine family. It will hurt Maine communities, particularly rural communities. It will hurt our economy. It will hurt the middle class. It's a budget that the governor's own budget commissioner called a budget of desperation. Well, it doesn't have to be. It does not have to be a budget of desperation. But in its current form, it is. And it is because last year the governor championed and the legislature passed income tax cuts that were not paid for. But now, when we look at the economic landscape of where we are, of reality, now is not the time for tax cuts that we cannot afford. Especially when the tax cuts are being paid for by a property tax increase on working and middle class families. To continue down this path of pretending we can afford it is not entirely accurate or truthful. The reality is that the big budget hole we face today is because the governor is neglecting this fact. He is pretending that Maine's financial reality is different from what it is. And so he's passing the buck. He's filling the hole by shifting $440 million to our towns. This is a shell game, and it will result in the largest tax hike on Maine people in Maine's history. Folks, we were sent here to make sure government reflects and shares the values of Maine people, and to make sure we provide the services that Maine people need. Strong public schools, safe roads and bridges, a safety net for our seniors and most vulnerable, and a Maine where families, small businesses, and communities thrive. And we can do this. We can do it responsibly. We can do it by delaying these tax cuts and preventing the largest property tax hike in the history on Maine people. Now is simply not the time to ask working and middle-class Mainers to pay more in property taxes. You know, during this budget process, we expect to have honest disagreements and debate about which priorities will get funded. We know hard choices will be made, and no one will be entirely happy with the budget. That's the art of compromise. Over the next week, the skilled negotiators on our state's budget writing committee will continue their hard work, their bipartisan work. They have tough choices to make. But I'm confident that both Democrats and Republicans will fix this budget and prevent a massive property tax increase on Maine families. Now, we know what the governor is going to do right after this press conference. He's going to resort to fear-mongering. You'll hear all the rhetoric about trickle-down economics and how Democrats want to raise taxes. But let me be clear. It's really quite simple. Does every Mainer want their property taxes to increase significantly? This budget will do so. The bottom line, the governor's budget raises taxes. Remember, it's a shell game. We'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
You're talking about a delay in these tax cuts. How long a delay?
We believe that the delay should be until the next biennial budget.
Have you made your case to the Republican legislature? It seems like they need to be convinced not to go.
The Budget Committee leadership has been communicating frequently and openly with our Republicans, and we believe this is the best way forward. One simple vote can change this budget. It would bring in around $400 million. Those $400 million would prevent the massive property tax increase that every Maine town and community is currently looking at. This is not going to help our economy. This is not going to help the middle class. And we can do it with one vote to suspend these tax cuts till the next biennium.
The governor said when we were talking to him this morning that he would veto any bill that raised sales or income taxes by even $1. So knowing that and knowing that you guys really haven't been successful in overriding any of his vetoes, what is your confidence level here that what you're planning on can actually be achieved?
Well, I think that doesn't surprise me at all, and it shouldn't surprise anybody. And what we're talking about right now is pushing until we can pay for it, really. I mean, what we're talking about is why we're here in this situation. And we're here because the governor pushed through a tax cut that disproportionately benefited the wealthy without paying for it. And now we're in the challenging situation, and the governor's proposal to pay for those tax cuts is to shift that burden onto the middle class, small businesses, seniors living in homes on fixed incomes. So we are confident that we can certainly have a healthy dialogue around the benefit of pushing this off until we can pay for it. I think it's the responsible thing to do, and I think just like anything that we do in this building, when we sit down and have honest conversations, what are the other alternatives? Because the governor's budget is a non-starter. We've known that, we know that. If we brought it up to the floor today, it would not pass. Republicans, Democrats, Independents would not support that budget, and that's why we're here today, looking at reality, how we got here, and what we need to do to move forward.
Why are you only talking about this now? It's almost June. You've been at it several times throughout the past several months. Do you plan to delay or appeal these tax cuts? And I don't know. I mean, is there enough time to negotiate from this new position with the remaining?
So I loved a comment that I heard from one of our members on appropriations. They said every day in appropriations is like a full week in the legislature. So there's plenty of time for us to get this done. There's plenty of time for us to communicate with our Republican colleagues to put together a responsible budget, and we will do that. Mainers expect us to work together, and they certainly don't expect us to go back to our towns and communities and say, your property taxes have gone up by over $400. That is not a win for our communities. That is not a win for this legislature.
Are you concerned at all about the administrative aspects of delaying these tax cuts? I mean, they went into effect on January 1st. Employee withholdings would have to be changed, tax forms. Is that a concern at all?
I think the most responsible thing to do, again, is recognize how we got here, the irresponsible decisions that were made by the governor in pushing this his tax reform budget, and making sure that we do something that really addresses the issue now with this budget shortfall. It's roughly $400 million that is represented in the tax cut that disproportionately benefits the wealthy, and it's $400 million that's being shifted to our municipalities, to every homeowner, to every renter, to every small business, to every middle-class working Mainer. So we feel like this is the most responsible approach to make sure that before we purchase something, we need to make sure that we can pay for it.
A lot of you guys up there, some that aren't here, voted for that budget getting into the tax cut. How do you sit here and sort of defend that vote and also call for a reversal of this politically?
When we took that vote, it was Governor LePage's first budget. We were promised many things. One, that this budget would be paid for by an economy that was recovering. Sadly, as we look here today at you and as we look at our state, we're not recovering. We're one of only 3 states that has not recovered from the recession. We're not creating jobs. In fact, we lost 1,500 jobs last year. Incomes for Mainers are down. All the economic metrics are going the wrong way in Governor LePage's economy. Thus, we look at this and say to ourselves, do we do the responsible thing now and act like adults and say, you know what, we can't pay for it, it's okay to be wrong? We wish the economy was better. We wish these tax cuts were paid for, but they're not. They haven't been, they've never been paid for, and when Commissioner Millett comes in front of our appropriators and says, this is a budget of desperation, we're going to listen. And I hope that our Republican colleagues will listen, and I'm sure the governor should listen too, because this is a budget that does not work for our municipalities, it does not work for our businesses, and it doesn't work for hardworking Mainers. Imagine us going into our communities again and saying, here you go, we just got done, we just balanced the budget. But part of balancing the budget means that every single one of you in my community and your community is going to get a property tax increase of over $400. That can't happen. And so we're going to continue working with our Republican colleagues to make sure it doesn't.
We'll hear from Republicans, we hear it a lot, that it's the expansion in social services that is the reason why we need to spend more and more money. And you guys just took a veto override vote on Medicaid expansion, that it's the expansion of these kinds of services that are causing the budget problem. What is your response to that?
I would say, let's get real about why we're here. And again, it's because it's an unpaid tax cut that was pushed through the legislature by Governor LePage that disproportionately benefits the wealthy. So I think that if we really take an honest look at why we're here, it's not, it is because the governor has pushed through tax cuts that disproportionately benefit the wealthy. We have an opportunity to reassess, recalibrate, and make sure that we correct course moving forward so that we're not shifting the burden onto every middle-class Mainer here in the state of Maine.